The meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless required by law. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by viewing the Duxbury Government Access channels, Verizon 39 or Comcast 9. Viewers can also visit pactv.org/Duxbury for information about Duxbury programming, including streaming on Duxbury YouTube, to watch replays and video on demand. With that, I call this meeting to order. And our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Next, we have open forum. I'm going to start with the board members, and I know we have Chair Lad Fiorini on remote. I'll start with her. Do you have anything in open forum you wanted to add?
Yeah, I did. Just briefly, there was something in the Globe today that reminded me. It's about the opioid settlement and about how cities and towns have not used much of the money yet. And I'm just wondering at some point we can get an update on that as far as how Duxbury's doing in that regard, and what the plan has been put forth for that.
Yes, absolutely.
We have a
Thank
group,
you.
a committee that is in charge of that, right? My neighbor,
We do,
Winchester's on it.
Great.
Okay.
I saw.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I saw Mr. Guitart's hand go up.
That's very formal this evening.
Yes, very formal.
Very formal. Yeah, so good news is that the Duxbury Bay Commission is ready to come before the board to provide context, make a presentation on the shellfish regulations and have that conversation. So whenever there's space on the agenda, we can do it.
Thank you. I have the information that was emailed to me regarding the amendment to Section 8 for the shellfish regs. I've got the regs themselves.
Yep.
All that stuff. And that's fine. There's the other thing of the other idea of the Bay Management Commission update. That's separate and distinct.
No,
from
that's they're going to provide an update as well.
Oh, are they going to give us information in advance of that?
Yeah, he's going to put a presentation together, and I told him that it needs to be ready by Thursday.
Okay. So whenever that, is he going to email it to me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. When I get it, then we'll schedule it. Perfect.
Good.
So this means that we're not just talking about shellfish regulations and shellfish, we're having a discussion about the bay and what's going on in the bay and competing interests in the bay as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important to, I think it's important before we get into that conversation is to understand the fisheries. I think a lot of people, maybe what I'm hearing is that competing interest, what is competing interest is that the fishery is taking over space. And I think that's what my sense is. So I think it's really important that we have that initial conversation. So basically to describe how we got into a fishery, all right, and what actions have been taken and what's in that regulation. And then we can deepen, and I think with that context, it might alleviate or provide answers to some of the people's concerns that there is no space left, or there is basically oyster fisheries taking over everything, right? It's a public bay, and there's other fisheries, there's other farming going on that the Duxbury town doesn't regulate, that's taking space up in the bay. So I think let's get the conversation going.
Right.
Let's see where it goes, and then we can follow up with a deeper conversation on specific areas that were not answered in that initial review. Does that?
Great.
Yeah, no, I think that there'll be a lot of
Sounds like a
interested
good agenda.
members of the public
Yep.
that will want to attend. So that's
Correct.
great, thank
Yep.
you.
Ag Commission's going to want to participate
Oh,
in
yeah.
that as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I'm really glad, and thank you. I know this has been a long time coming, so I'm very excited that we are finally going to get this presentation.
good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, Mr. Glenn.
Briefly, Mr. Chairman, thank you. First, I wanted to, and I don't want to steal Susan's thunder, but I want to thank everybody who's come out to file nomination papers for Planning Board. And I especially want to thank the Clipper for covering that issue on our meeting last week.
Yes.
Because as a result, and I heard from several people, it was because of the Clipper article people came out to submit nomination papers. So I just want to recognize that and thank Susanna for that much appreciated public service. The other thing I wanted to mention is the Village of Duxbury held a first responders reception last week that was attended primarily by the fire department and the folks at the Rock. And I just want to thank the village for a tremendous opportunity to appreciate our first responders, and I thought it was very very kind of them to extend that hospitality. I understand they've been doing it for years, with the exception of COVID. I wasn't aware of that, and it's something that they're now continuing, and I thought it was a great program. Just want to thank them. Thank you.
Can I just add to that? And thanks for that, Brian. I did see that, and I wasn't aware that they did that either. I think it's a really nice thing to do. But I think one of the unsung first responders that, you know, we don't always think about are the DPW, and recently the water department have been out taking care of some, you know, emergency situations. But the DPW, you know, they're out, they respond even so that the fire and police can respond. So, you know, I do think that they are often kind of the unsung heroes. So I think they deserve a bit of a kudos as well. So thank you for that.
Here, here.
Does any member of the public have something for open forum? Yes. If you wouldn't mind going to the podium, state your name and your street. We can start with that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Lynn Greenwood, and I'm here just to, I think this is I've spoken many times at the school committee, and I just think it's something that needs to get on every department's agenda, or not agenda, on your radar, if that makes sense. I'm part of Health Rights Mass, and we had a big event for the legislature on January 22nd. We held a webinar. We had the top doctors and scientists from around the country just talking about, they are all talking about they want to stop the shots, the COVID shots. We have the webinar. You guys can watch it. It's Kevin McKiernan, who is one of them, who's from Massachusetts. He's a top genetic scientist from MIT. He was a lead on the Genome Project. He's probably one of the top genetic scientists in the country. He found two processes were made when he found this all by accident. There's process 1 to make the vaccine for the trial, and there was process 2 to make it for the public. So that alone, no one got informed consent. There were 2 different products. The second thing he found was there's DNA plasmid contamination in the shots, both Moderna and Pfizer. Just in Pfizer, there's the SV40 insert that he found. So they all talk about it. He does about a 10-minute, even if you just watch Kevin's, because it's just really packed. The SV40 insert that he found in the Pfizer, there's a lab at the University of Rochester. All they do is integrate DNA into the cells, gene therapy, and the only thing that integrates DNA into the cells is the SV40 insert that he found in the shots. So it's a lot. I'm throwing a lot at you. This is the study that Pfizer gave to the FDA and the CDC in February of 2021. It has 9 pages, single-spaced, of adverse events they were aware of that they didn't tell the public. Aaron Series sued him. They had to release it in February of 2022. So no one was aware. They were aware. RSV is on that. RSV is a side effect of the vaccine. We conveniently now have a vaccine for RSV to treat the side effect from the vaccine. So I'm also going to leave you just, Edward Dowd is a financial analyst. He was, great reputation in the industry. So you have the scientist view, you have the doctor's view. He's a financial analyst view, so he looks at it in that way. So I'll leave you with that book. So this is our Faces of Vaccine Injury at Health Rights Mass. We had a big event. That's all we do is deal with people that are injured. So I know it's a tough subject. I know people don't want to talk about it, but there's a lot of people that are injured, even in this town. There's one of the Duxbury members in here. And back to the fire and police. Myself and the woman who was injured, we went around to all the police and fire to let them know about this event, and I have to say we were very well received. We were on the Cape, the South Shore. There wasn't a police or fire department that didn't acknowledge something's happening, and we're happy that someone was doing something about it. So it's just something to get everyone to just at least start to think about, because they're all, I mean, there's scientists around the world that are asking these COVID shots need to be stopped because the technology is affecting people pretty bad. So, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah,
Please.
As long as, does it need to be returned?
Nope, they're all, because we give these, so I work very closely with our group works with Patrick O'Connor very closely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Any other members of the public have any open forum? Okay. With that, we'll move on to new business. Reviewing and voting on the following election-related items with our town clerk, Susan Kelly. And I'll let her lead this off. There are 4 items.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Brian, for mentioning the article. We did receive nomination papers from several people, so we now are working on certifying those papers. I have 2 more candidates to go. So I will let you know tomorrow when I'm finished, in all fairness to the ones I haven't looked at yet. So we will have a race for school committee. There are 2 candidates for 1 slot. And planning board, if I finish the others successfully, there will be 6 candidates for 2 positions
Wow.
on the ballot.
Nice.
Yay, So
good for them.
That's great.
Not easy getting those signatures, so thank you.
It's
to
not,
those
and
folks.
actually, somebody came in on Saturday and picked up the papers at 11:30 in the morning and had them back by 5, so
Wow.
kudos to them.
Yep.
So you, as a procedural matter, have to call for the election, for the annual town election on March 23rd. I think you probably have a motion to do that.
We
I do. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
First, let me thank you, though, for on a Saturday, accommodating 6 people that wanted to run kind of, at the 11th hour, but, thank you for facilitating that.
My
That
pleasure.
was great. I call for the 2024 annual town election. I move that the Select Board directs the constable of the town of Duxbury to notify and warn the inhabitants of Duxbury who are qualified to vote in the annual town election to vote at precincts 1 through 6 at the Lieutenant Timothy J. Steele Athletic Building, 130 St. George Street, Duxbury, Massachusetts, on Saturday, March 23rd, 2024, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. So the next item B, voting to opt in for in-person early voting for the annual town election. I need to table that item. It requires a vote by the Board of Registrars to, they would approve it to bring to you to vote on that. So I will meet with them and bring that to you.
Okay.
It was
Is everything
successful.
okay going with the board registrars?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep, we're getting along.
Thank you
okay.
for answering the question.
Yep.
Is there a date you have to have that on? Do you know? Because we don't have a meeting on the 19th.
You don't have a meeting when?
On the 19th.
19th.
Let me see. Are we doing on the 19th? We can do it either the 26th or the 4th, but I'd prefer to do it the 26th.
I was going to ask your preference. Okay, we'll do it on 2/26.
Yeah,
All right, so we're holding this one.
we're going to hold that one. So the next one is the call for the presidential primary, and that's procedural.
May I have a motion?
I move that the Select Board directs the constable of the town of Duxbury to notify and warn the inhabitants of Duxbury who are qualified to vote in the presidential primary election to vote at precincts 1 through 6 at the Lieutenant Timothy J. Steele Athletic Building located at 130 St. George Street, Duxbury, Massachusetts, on Tuesday, the 5th day of March, 2024, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. The 4th item is voting to authorize a change of location and the in-person early voting for the presidential primary. The in-person early voting is actually dictated by Mass General Law, and we are required, based on the size of our town, to hold early voting beginning February 24th for a 6-hour period over Saturday, the 24th, and Sunday, the 25th. Just to give us a day of rest in between all of this, we're going to do our full 6 hours on the 24th, and we will be doing early voting between 9 and 3. And then we are required Monday through Friday of the following week to hold early voting during the hours that town hall is open. So it will be the standard town hall hours here.
As far as the change of location, previously, we've held early voting at the Steel Building. We are going to try holding early voting here at Town Hall for the primaries only. I'm hopeful that it will work out that way, so we don't tie up the Steel Building and forces students to find alternative places to practice and so forth. So we plan to hold voting down here in the mural room, as well as advanced processing of those early ballots also in this room. So fingers crossed it will work, and we can also do the state primary in September here. November presidential election, we'll move back to the Steel Building. And then we would occupy that for 2 weeks.
And as part of that, just to piggyback on that, that means one of our meetings is actually going to be over at the senior center.
Okay.
Which I appreciate you moving and accommodating that, because we have to set this room up with the booths and so forth, so.
For you, Madam Clerk, the world.
Madam Clerk, I have a question. So this motion then, do we not need to approve the previous, the motion that we
Table.
He tabled, the one, the
Two separate.
vote into opt-out early person voting, is
The
that?
two separate elections.
Two separate.
Separate elections.
Two separate
so,
elections, all
yes.
right. Thank you.
Because in-person early voting is required for state elections, but it's
Right.
not required for municipal elections.
Ah, it's
So
municipal
we actually
election.
have to opt in to do it for a town election.
It's for the town election, okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So for this one, we're basically, the early voting hours for the presidential isn't something you could change, but I'm asking you to approve and vote on changing the location from the Steel Building to here.
Okay.
I know there's also for the presidential, and probably, are we doing mail voting for the town election as well?
Funny thing about that, the postcards that everybody got, there is a box that says all elections.
Yeah,
And because I chose not to opt out of mail-in voting for the town election, anybody who asked for a ballot for all of the other state elections will be getting one for the town election. So a lot of ballots will be going out, and I'm sure many of those won't come back, but that's just a byproduct of the postcard.
how will that work with the in-person early voting and clearing out the mailboxes, and what kind of timing when will you cut off? that kind of-
So we won't have our town election ballots probably until the beginning of March. And we have different envelopes for
Yeah.
those than what we're using for the presidential
Okay.
primary.
And they have to get them in before, when would they have to get their mailed ballots into a mailbox?
For the presidential primary?
For both? We'll start
Okay,
with the
so presidential primary, we have to receive the ballot by 8 PM on Election Day.
Uh-huh.
So if they put it in the mail and we don't receive it until the next day, then it will be rejected as being late.
So you're sweeping all the mailboxes at 8 o'clock on,
We come back and check the green box out back at 8 o'clock.
yeah,
And we go down to the post office in Hall's Corner as late as we can to pick up anything that's there. They always put them aside for us.
okay, but that's the best you can't hit every mailbox, obviously.
No, it would just be what's in the post office waiting
Yeah.
to be delivered, or our drop box out back.
Okay,
And those are the two places we'll check. For the town election, it would also have to, the ballots would have to be here by 8 PM on Election Day. So if people are running late and getting ballots in the mail, they're welcome to hand carry them back to the office, or to leave them to our office, or to leave them in the drop box out back. They cannot take them to the polls. We can't accept them at the polls.
that was my last question. So you cannot bring your ballot back to the polls?
If you received a mail ballot that you wish to vote, they'll be offered the option of bringing it back to town hall and leaving it in the drop box, or discarding that ballot and voting in person.
So you can. So if you signed up for the mail voting, but you decide on election day for the town elections that you'd want to go vote.
Yep.
You can still do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And what happens is that the first ballot we receive, whether it's the mailed ballot or the one you vote in person, is the one we log in. The second ballot would be rejected.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Ready?
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I move
I
that
don't envy you.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot.
Sounds like a nightmare.
I move that the Select Board authorize the change of location of the poles from the Lieutenant Timothy J. Steele Athletic Building, 130 St. George Street, Duxbury, Massachusetts, to the Town Hall Mural Room, 878 Tremont Street, Duxbury, Massachusetts, for early in-person voting only for the presidential primary during the following dates and times. Saturday, February 24th, 2024, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Number 2, no in-person voting on Sunday, February 25th, 2024. Monday, February 26th, 2024, from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., normal business hours. On Tuesday through Thursday, February 27th through the 29th, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., normal business hours. And on Friday, March 1st, from 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., normal business hours.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Threw me
Thank you
off.
so much.
Thank you.
I second that one.
I was having a sidebar.
He was, I don't know what happened there,
Yeah.
but it all worked out.
We need. The next thing on the menu here is our discussion, review, and vote of the following March 9th, 2024 annual town meeting articles. We have 14, 15, 20, and 21. I'll start with the PFAS articles, 14 and 15. It's the PFAS prioritization plan and the PFAS mitigation design. I believe we have a presentation or an introduction from our town manager.
No, not me. What I'm giving you, what you're passing out right now is the copy of the one-liners,
Yeah.
which shows you what you're going to be doing tonight, highlighted in yellow, and what everybody else has done. I just wanted to kind of preface that so you could have a view of the landscape, if you will. And with that, I think it's going to be Fernando and Ryan.
So what I'll do, if that's okay,
Sheila
Ryan,
and Mark.
I've been working with Ryan on this presentation, but maybe I'll go ahead and, if you don't mind, I'll lead the conversation, and any questions either I can answer or Ryan can step in with additional information. So can we put the slide pack up? Thank you. So let me start off by what I like to do in the presentation is three things. So I wanted to update everybody on the current status regulations for PFAS in drinking water. Second, and then so with that, what are we doing about it? And that's obviously Articles 14 and 15. And then finally, really, the conversation is, why do we need to vote on them? I think, based on the conversations we've had to date, I think everybody can get behind Article 14. The question is with regards to the timing of Article 15. So hopefully the presentation will get you up to speed what's going on, what are we doing about it, and give you enough information to make an informed vote this evening. So first slide here is I think the key message is that EPA has not yet established enforceable drinking water standards, all right? So there's a process here, and in fact, they're going right now, and they've issued a proposed, what they call PFAS National Primary Drinking Water Regulations, NPDWOR, which limits PFAS, PFOS, and PFOA to 4 parts per trillion, right? So that's going right now through an interagency review, and the best intel on timing is sometime late March, April of 2024. And to quote the website, EPA looks forward to issuing final rules after the interagency review, all right? And then we'll have 3 years to be in compliance. And what's by compliance is that obviously within the 4 parts per trillion, and there's requirement for 4 quarterly samples over a 1-year period so they have to sample each well 4 times a year, and they'll take an average of those 4 readings over 1 year to ensure that we're below the 4 parts per trillion. So as I said, EPA does not have it. They had they had a non-enforceable lifetime health advisory. They issued updated advisories, and then they finally got around to working on enforceable. Massachusetts has been in a different place, and they're quite proud of it. They've established enforceable drinking water standards, as we're all aware of. That's the 20 parts per trillion for PFAS 6, which is basically a sum of all PFOA, PFOS, and all the other ones, which essentially what they call now Gen X and PFBS, which is both replacements for PFOA and PFOS, which supposedly are a little less hazardous. Okay, so that's where we are. Can we look at the next slide then? So as I said to where we are, they're at the Office of the OMB, Management and Budget Review. Like I said, they submitted mid-December, sometime in April, and of 2024. You know, what's really interesting is that is a copy on the right-hand side. We can't read it there, but difficult to read. But that's essentially from Mass DEP, right? So they sent a message back in 2023, May 23, in support of this regulation that EPA is trying to put forward, basically strongly supporting. Basically, they've offered suggestions to help in development of the rules. And I think when you read through the letter, they're pretty proud of implementing, to quote, one of the most stringent PFAS limits on drinking water, right? So it is one of few in the nation. And they urge EPA to take up swift action to implement, and they applaud their efforts, all right? So basically the bottom line is that something's going to happen. There's no two ways
They're
about
going
it.
to lower they're going to lower the allowed
EPA,
limit.
after everything's saying that they're going to basically put an enforceable rule, basically key states are supporting it, it's going to happen. It's going to go to 4 parts per trillion. That's basically current thinking. But what I'll do at the end, we'll have we have an option tree, right, to kind of to figure out the implications of that. Bottom line, everything, all the jungle drums, so to speak, are saying that something will happen, and that we will go from basically at the federal level, we'll go from non-enforceable to enforceable, and it's 4 parts per trillion. It may change, but it certainly will be enforceable. And definitely, our limit right now is 20 parts per trillion, and who knows what Mass will do. If they want to do something different from the 20 parts per trillion, they'll have to go through the same process of engagement before they can actually enforce that maximum contaminant level. If the state wants to do something different. Next slide. So what's really interesting as well is in a sense that what's really cool here, because of the EPA's work, there's been what they call a multi-district litigation that's been carried out by Napoli and Kolnick, I presume that's how you say it. And essentially, they've actually obtained probably one of the biggest, awards. I can't remember the right word, but basically the bottom line is that they've actually agreed with 3M that 3M will put $12.5 billion into the kitty to remediate drinking water supplies, right? Not do anything else, right? Not all the other stuff that's out there, but for remediation of drinking water supply, there's $12.5 billion from 3M. And there's about $1.2 billion from DuPont. For our current regulations, that's Partridge Street well, because we're over the 20 in Partridge Street wells. But when I checked up with the lawyers from Napoli and Kolink, the agreement also states that if there's a future change in regulations, those wells that are not in compliance with the future regulations will also come into play and be part of the award. And they even got a table out there, right? So it's based on millions of gallons per minute, and your PFAS score, and then you'll get awarded some amount of money. The question is, it sounds like, next slide, please, Michelle. It sounds like, $13.7 billion is a lot of money, but considering Massachusetts is only one of the few states that actually does anything about PFAS, knows what's going on. Right now, they're saying $5 billion to comply, but actually, as it stated there, little PFAS testing has been done, and the impact will probably may be higher, right? So it sounds like a lot of money, but it could well be spread over many states and many pieces. And as we know, because Mass has been measuring PFAS, we have an idea of the extent of the issues right now with the current regulations, and obviously that will get worse if the 4 parts per trillion come into play. Next slide, please. So where are we? As I stated, we do have 2 articles there. Article 14, which is for $700,000, and that's basically for conceptual design and conceptual design and potential project costs. And it is our intent here to use that to kind of prioritize which wells should we go after first, all right? The conceptual design will identify, will take water samples, and, you know, and there are other contaminants in that water, and therefore you have to design the treatment process to mitigate those other chemicals, because they affect the effectiveness of the PFAS filtration system that will be selected. Obviously, remember they did the hydrological design as well. So depending on offtake rates, the plume will move in the direction of high offtake rates. So we've got to do a bit of modeling again to help them prioritize. And the most important thing is we'll have a project manager along with that 700K, which something that we've always been asking for. So where are we? Then we have Article 15, right? So the plan is to get the first work done, and then basically once we have that data, then we select the well that we're going to go after, and it's basically for actually detailed design and permitting, all right? And you know, the timeline is important, because right now we don't know when EPA is going to come out. The timing of that most likely will be sometime first quarter this year, maybe slip into second part of this year. But no matter what, and then you've got 3 years after that before being in compliance. But we know that from detailed design to in-service for any piece of equipment is 2 to 2.5 years. All right, so if we keep ahead of this, and if it works at the timeline we anticipate, then we'll have the equipment ready and the first well up and running to be able to at least meet that standard. Next slide, please. I mean, so this is the current status where we are, right? So basically the top table on the left-hand side has all our 12 wells, and it has basically what they're allowed to produce. All right, so you can see the Evergreen well, there's 2 wells, and they produce a total of 1.6 million gallons a day. Right? And it goes through the list. And then we've got the Depot Street is offline because manganese. So we got 0.6 million gallons a day offline, and then we got the Project Street well because of PFAS, all right? If you look at the table on the right-hand side, so that's the maximum day pumping demand for this town, that's peak season, is 3.7 million gallons per day, all right? So that's peak. And then more the peak occurs obviously during the summertime when we're just doing the normal watering plus all the outside watering, all that good stuff that happens during the summer, right? 3.7 million gallons per day as a maximum demand, and that's a summertime basis. So you look at the bottom table, bottom left-hand table, you can see here essentially that we've only got the Mayflower, Evergreen, and Tremont wells, I spelled that wrong, that are under the 4 parts per trillion, right? So if you look at what they produce, if you add up the Mayflower, Evergreen, and Tremont wells, it's 4 million gallons per day. So basically, we've got no spare capacity. And we've identified roughly that these are the wells, you know, basically then the remaining wells, then we already know which wells we're going to have an idea which we're going to work on. Next slide. So what I'm trying to say here is this is the option tree that we're at, right? 4 parts per trillion, when is it going to happen? More than likely it's going to happen sometime this year or sometime during this year. And we will basically know that we'll need to either, with that work, we can prioritize either the Damon, Lakeshore, Depot Street wells because they're the ones that are above the 4 parts per trillion. And some people say, well, what about if nothing happens, right? If it takes another 3 or 4 years, right? We still have 1 well that we know that's over the 20 parts per trillion with existing legislation. So if EPA, Mass DEP do nothing, we still have 1 well that's over. So Article 15 could be used if everything gets delayed. Article 15 money, the $1 million can go towards addressing the 1 well that we know does not meet, right? But more than likely, we have an idea now as to which direction we should go. We need to figure out and prioritize Damon, Lakeshore, Depot Street. So the question has always been, well, if it takes until 1 quarter of 2025 to figure out the prioritization. Maybe we can do a special, maybe it'll run into March. So that was a question regarding that a lot of discussion around the timing. I think we've got time. We know that if things go really, really slowly and nothing changes it could do, then we know we have one well that we could spend that $1 million, which we appropriate. And we have time between now, if you decide, if the town, if the select board votes yes to appropriate this money, we've got time between now and the ATM, and we have contacts within the EPA and within Massachusetts legislator to find out what's going on, to get a better idea of the timing and the likelihood of staying at 20 or going down to 4 parts per trillion. So I'm recommending that. A final point, actually. If this thing goes ahead, when you think about it, right, everybody, the whole state, the whole United States is going to be
They're gonna be
requiring 4 parts per trillion.
Scrambling.
So how many people are manufacturing PFAS equipment, right? So again, this is a thorny problem. I'm sure the legislators, and I'm sure as the office of the OMB office is thinking about this, how can we put this in place, but recognize that once we figure out how big the problem is, it's freaking huge. All right, so again, I suppose that's the debate around, shall we appropriate the $1 million? I've asked, Mary's not here, but I've asked her, there's concern about appropriating money, but if we appropriate the money, as far as I understand, it doesn't mean we have to spend it. It's appropriated, but we don't have to spend it. Now, I don't know if appropriating money, that's the answer is, does it stop us from doing something else? Does it impact the budget? Do we lose the ability to borrow somewhere else? Does it have a negative impact if we appropriate? My sense that it doesn't.
No, it's just raise and appropriate, the money sits in the article until we spend it.
So, exactly. So it makes sense to me to get ahead of the game, have that money in our hip pocket so that we can act as quickly as when we have the information. That's why I'm strongly recommending that we approve both Article 14 and Article 15 to give us that flexibility to act as soon as we can and get ahead of the game. Yeah. Okay, that's it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Ryan, is there anything else you want to add? Did I miss anything? Any other context you might want to add?
Good evening. Well done, Fernando. I'd like to mention as well, a key piece of the existing supplies you mentioned there, it's very, very close at the 4 million gallons per day. Yeah. And there is one thing to consider as well. It's something that we always take into account when we look at master planning for water systems is you always want to try to plan to meet your maximum day demands with at least one source of supply offline, just in case of emergency or a pump failure or mechanical issue at any of the wells. So I think even what you showed didn't even really take that into account. And so we have to consider that as well.
Yeah.
Secondly, this funding that is going to be following all this from the federal government through the bipartisan infrastructure law, which will then be distributed to the Massachusetts State Revolving Fund, what's called the SRF. So there'll be some low interest loans or 0% loans if earmarked and directly earmarked for PFAS projects. I would anticipate, similar to how the MCL for PFAS 6 was outlined in Massachusetts almost 3 to 4 years ago now, to expect some grants as well from the state for helping pay for some of the actual planning and design, which can be reimbursed after the fact as well, which we successfully did with one of our other clients. And in addition, the SRF program will pay for the construction and bidding costs and for engineering costs. So its ability to align now, proactively plan and look at the prioritization and start on designs and get ahead of everyone else that's going to be waiting in line for those sacred vessels and filter media. You know, when the time comes, all those public water suppliers will be looking for almost about the same thing you're going to be looking for.
Great, thank you, Ryan.
Mrs. McNabb.
Thank you, and good presentation, Fernando. I've been listening in on the Finance Committee discussions about this, and they did not vote in favor of recommending approval to town meeting. And I think
It was close. It was
close.
four
And I
against
think
3-4. Yep.
they're listening to their conversation, and they can speak for themselves,
Yeah.
but you know, they felt that because the money wasn't specifically earmarked, you know, that this was, that there wasn't an actual price tag for kind of every dollar here, that they weren't comfortable with it. But, and I think anybody who knows me knows that I don't like to spend money that we don't need to, but I I believe that this is a smart, proactive way to get ahead of this thing. We know it's coming. It affects every resident in this town. Everybody drinks water, and I said this at the Finance Committee meeting too. This, the most vulnerable of our residents are the children. And this stuff builds up in you over a lifetime. And so, we need to be sure that we eliminate this danger in all of our drinking water, and especially our kids. So I think that as much of a proactive approach that we can take, that is just the smart way, because we are going to be dealing with this, and if we plan for that instead of being reactive and be proactive, I just think that we're doing our jobs up here. Again, it's going to be town meetings' decision.
Right.
They're the decision makers, but I would strongly recommend that we recommend approval to the town. That's my position.
Mr. Chairman, two questions. The first is, we still have flexibility, don't we? And I guess I'm looking to Ryan, when we're talking about the prioritization plan, and then that goes into mitigation, of course, based on what you prioritize. The Depot and Partridge wells are offline for other reasons, but they're also contaminated, and they're also low flow or low yield compared to the other wells. In fact, just by my quick math, we have about 5.8 million gallons a day based upon what's online, which exceeds the 3.74 maximum demand. My question is, when we're talking about prioritization and mitigation, how likely is it that Depot and Partridge are going to be integral parts of that analysis? Because those obviously are going to require the most in the way of resources. And I'm concerned that where we have far more productive wells that also need attention, I don't want us getting stuck saying, well, we have to remediate the dirtiest one first, for example. I can't imagine that's how we would approach this, but maybe you can walk us through a little bit. I know you can't, you have a crystal ball and say, well, it's probably going to be these wells, but based on what you know so far, I would like some level of comfort to know that as we look at this process, assuming we vote to recommend this to town meeting, and town meeting adopts both of these, which I expect they will, that we're using, to Amy's point, our resources as efficiently as possible, knowing that if we can't provide clean water, we're failing as a municipality. That's one of our basic duties. So I think we can do that in a cost-effective way, but I just want to better understand how Depot and Partridge fall into that. And then the other question, which I think is probably a little easier, is just as we, as a town, weren't really familiar with PFAS, say 5 or 10 years ago as an issue in water, now that we have the opportunity to look at our resources and our distribution system, are there other, I won't call them contaminants, but are there other components of the water that we can take advantage of removing at this point, since we're going to be making upgrades anyway? So maybe there aren't other things that we have to take out, but we could take out as part of this, and I want to understand what, if anything, will go into that analysis. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, happy to answer that. Yes, the short answer is yes. We have to address the water quality prior to treating for PFAS, because some of the other iron and manganese may actually foul the media that will remove the PFAS. So we have to look at each source during the first article on what the water quality is and the dynamics of it, and the ability of different media to remove PFAS and other contaminants like iron and manganese that may be present in different concentrations. So that is definitely something that we look for, and that will come into the prioritization, because different types of treatment have different timelines. And we also have to think about both sources in the high zone and the low zone, and looking at prioritizing the well supplies that can probably produce the most in each zone.
Yep.
And having those as sort of the backbone with treatment that we can trust while we're within that 3-year compliance period.
Okay, let me just jump in for a sec, because iron and manganese I get, but are there other components? And again, I don't know off the top of my head what one of these would be, but are there other things that maybe we're hearing about, like, oh, this is also coming down the road as a potential issue that water suppliers in the future need to be sensitive to, and is there something we can do now to try to abate whatever those issues might be? In other words, try to get ahead of something as we're dealing with PFAS as well.
Based upon the last water quality data I saw in the water department is sampling according with the current Massachusetts requirements. I have not seen anything else in the water other than iron manganese, and obviously pH that would that impact PFAS treatment with this project. We sit here probably 5 to 10 years ago not understanding what PFAS was, and it was in water. So a decade from now there could be something else that we can even test for at this point. So I can't obviously say nothing else, but from what we know today, that's what I see as the current concerns.
Okay, thank you. And with respect to Depot and Partridge?
They're part of the conversation, obviously, but I think that they would be generally, the other aspect that we look at is how do we combine projects that are close to each other to help with an economy of scale to save some money on a large scale basis. So we're going to be looking at every single well during that preliminary analysis and to understand what are the challenges for each site, what is the timeline and the cost of putting treatment at each site in each facility, or will some be grouped together, will some not be? And then that will sort of develop that prioritization plan, and whether or not Depot or Partridge is part of that first, so that's to be seen. But my guess is that we would probably prioritize the wells that we could do on a streamlined timeline, and those that will provide the most water if we run up against that 3-year compliance period and we're forced to turn off a source.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I ask for a point of clarification on just a couple of things that were said? Like, was said that we have 12 wells. We have 9 total wells. Depot and Partridge are both offline. Depot due to manganese and Partridge due to PFAS, right? All
Yep.
that's, okay. Just want to clarify that.
Yeah, that's fine. And before I jump in here, I want to recognize the chair. Do you have any questions, Chair Ladfiorini? I know you're in Zoom land, so I want to make sure you're heard.
I am in Zoom land. Yeah, I just had a question. I think, Amy, you had said that the Finance Committee voted against, I thought you said these. They actually voted in favor of Article 14, is that
Yes.
right?
In favor of Article 14, but not 15, correct. Sorry.
And it wasn't unanimous. It was 4 against and
Right.
and 3-4.
4, yeah, it was a very, very
It's a close
split.
vote.
Very
Yeah.
split vote. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a question at this point. I just want to maybe, jump on board and say how important I think it is to be proactive on this. I think that our water quality is one thing that we really pride ourselves in some ways, and it's really important to the people of Duxbury. So I would definitely vote in favor of Article 15.
Thank you. I have some questions. This appropriation, where would the money be coming from?
Taxation? Well, no.
It's an
Ask
article.
your next question.
Sorry.
Ask the next one.
Okay. The next question, just while it's on, it's kind of an offshoot of the prioritization, is Fernando talked about that law, that trust fund, or however it's set up through the law firm. How would the interplay of that with respect to how you prioritize the well? How would that work? Because there's certain wells now that could be paid for through that trust fund, but other wells couldn't be because they're below that 4. So we may want to do, as Brian said, one that's producing more water, but we might not be able to get reimbursed for it. Is that something you're going to be addressing? Ryan?
Yes, as part of the plan. Also the aspect of that is to be eligible for some of the 0% interest loans or funding. Typically, would be rated higher or higher score with the rating criteria if you're prioritizing well that is most impacted.
I think
And-
this is best answered by Napoli Schulting, the partner I spoke to. And then maybe we can, as we go through this Article 14 spend, I could maybe get the partner linked in with Ryan. I presume we'll be the project manager there or selected to do the work, and then we can figure that one out.
Yeah, and it's a perspective question. I'm
Yeah.
the other end,
I believe it's ARPA for both.
Oh,
so how are we going to use ARPA funding for both?
I don't know, I don't have Mary here, but I think that was how we were allocating it. We were getting the money back from the one project and repurposing it for this. That was my understanding.
We just voted on, and I apologize for shaking my head.
That's okay, don't worry about it.
And I know you have a million things on your plate. I believe at our last meeting,
Yeah.
we voted on like a laundry list of items that we were going to allot about $1.1 million.
You're right, you did. I don't know. I don't know.
yeah, I don't think that this
So
was
I don't
one of
think-
them.
Sheila or Mark, do you remember what the funding source is? I did too. But without her here, I can't verify.
Yeah.
We can find out.
So that was number one, the funding source. The other end of this, I brought this up, I think, when we were talking about the prioritization plan a while back, but I know that the focus is on the wells. Will any part of this plan have to do with the source or potential sources of PFAS? Because it would seem to me that we're somewhat throwing a lot of money and a lot of resources at, and we could be chasing our tails, so to speak, if we put all this media in there and it fills up with PFAS.
I have the
Yeah.
funding source.
And we,
Sorry.
and we have to keep changing out the media sources.
I think maybe to answer that question, right? Can I just maybe just
start,
say,
yeah, sure.
At the end of the day, PFAS is in there, right?
Right.
PFAS is in our septic systems. It's when we wash our clothes, the stuff that it comes out in our washing machine,
It's in
it goes in
dental
the septic
floss.
system, so it's all over the place. Lakeshore Drive has got. I mean, is the furthest away from our one of our known sources of PFAS, and yet it has Lakeshore Drive has got 4.34 right now and 4.36 PFOA and PFOS, right? So yes, the offtake rate, and as I mentioned, you've got the plume that's going essentially from the town dump and is going towards Duxbury Bay. That's the gradient, and yeah, if you put in wells there that are down dip, they will drag more water, and that's part of that part of that hydrological study to understand how that plume goes, right? So I think the first thing is we've got to get one thing we can definitely do is get PFAS out of our drinking water by putting something basically downstream of the well exit. We do need to look at technology and funding to go ahead and underneath both those dumps, we need to put in a collection system that collects the leaching and then basically takes away and treats it somewhere else. All right, so that's. I think the first priority is let's get our drinking water in a good shape, and then yeah, we need to look for funding to address the sources of PFAS that are coming out of both the Duxbury landfill and the McLean, the other McNeil dump. So I'd say that yeah, this is the first step. Yeah.
Maybe it's just something I'm just going to keep repeating because
Yeah.
I do think it's important. The other end of this is, again, on sources. Ryan, do you know if part of that lawsuit that 3M and the other company, when they were supposed to have PFAS out of the things that they manufacture by?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know a couple of states are actually taking action now on prohibiting use of PFAS in any products, essentially banning those products in the state. But I can't remember off the top of my head which states they were, but I believe they were somewhere in the So
basically PFOA and PFOS has been banned, but now because it's such a wonderful product. They've got another one called Gen X, which is a different combination of PFOS, so whatever, PFA. Yeah? And that's the 10 part per trillion of Gen X, which is replacement for PFOA. And the other one, the replacement for PFOS, is 2,000 parts per trillion, right? So the people have stopped manufacturing those two, but they're obviously, we need those products are, well, they have a market, right? And they have people use them, right? And they are being used. One thing I learned at the forum there, the talk was, when you put your popcorn in the microwave, that bag is lined with PFOS, right? So your popcorn doesn't stick to the bag, so it's everywhere.
It's in your floss.
In your floss. There we go. That's right.
I mean, it's in all of us.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so. I mean, so what's the funding source on this?
Funding for the Article 14, the 700,000 is through water retained earnings.
Right.
And Article 15 is $1 million borrowing.
Borrowing.
Right, not ARPA. We've spent the ARPA, you're right. But your point is well taken, Mike, about mitigating the sources. And, it does seem contradictory that the state of Massachusetts, and I think that they're thinking, they're forward thinking in that they have set a standard unlike the rest of the country in the EPA. However, they talk out of both sides of their mouth, because out of the other side of their mouth, they are requiring all communities to create extremely high-density zoning areas where we know that the impacts of that increase PFAS and PFOA. So it's certainly a catch-22.
So does the board want to vote a recommendation?
I'm ready.
The
Do you want to open it up to the public?
yes. First, does the public? Mark, did you want to add anything about staffing or your feelings on this at all, as far as how would they be able to? Because I kind of want to understand the whole cost end of this.
My only thought is activated carbon is going to be used for a lot of this treatment, and that's been around for probably at least 70 years, maybe longer, and it removes all sorts of contaminants. So, I mean, it's really something good to add to your water system.
Yeah.
It's used in all surface water plants. It removes taste, odors, and all kinds of other stuff, so it'd be a really good addition to the water treatment.
As far as staffing on this kind of, I know this is way ahead of this, but you had mentioned this, I think, offhand at another meeting. What kind of staffing would you have to be able to do any of this work on any of the wells?
Definitely be a lot more maintenance going on, whether our staff did it or we brought somebody in to do that maintenance, probably a combination of both. But it would be very expensive. And any maintenance now is super expensive.
Yeah. And the control systems and everything else like it will require basically a dedicated plant operator, right, to fully understand how all that stuff works, right? A lot of valves, controls, automation.
And then there'll be the annual changing of carbon
Yeah.
as needed.
Yeah. So it will be more expensive to operate. Yep.
Can I ask
We're only
Mark?
talking about,
Okay,
sorry.
go ahead.
We're only talking about, right now, prioritization and mitigation.
Correct.
And then we have to decide what to do.
Right.
And then pay for that, that's the big money. I mean, we're talking about significant money now. That's nothing compared to whatever the remediation's going to be.
Correct.
And we're talking about borrowing, and we haven't done a fee, we haven't talked about a rate change either for the water.
Yeah, that's definitely coming.
Yeah, we need to have that.
It would have been nice to pay for Article 15 with water money.
Enterprise.
I mean, it's, who's going to be taking the loan out? Are we going to be doing that as water and sewer commissioners? And
I don't know yet.
okay.
Is that an override?
Mark, could I ask you a question before you sit down? So I think for Article 15, and the fact that there isn't, an exact purpose for these monies, it's more, having these on board so that we can take steps necessary when we need to do them to get out ahead of this. In your opinion, Nobody knows the water department better than you do right now, but is that a smart thing, having those funds available so that we can move quickly,
Yeah, we'd like it available, so when we do decide to act, we can do it quickly.
right? Beat the other towns or states or,
Yeah, yeah, I really don't want to have to wait for the funding when we're ready to move on something.
just asking your opinion.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
He's a smart guy.
Do we have to, if the article passes a town meeting, does the town have to borrow that money immediately? Or can they wait until they decide how we're gonna
If we need it.
design?
We usually wait
Yeah.
until we figure out what it is we're going to be buying.
Because I
Because
wonder,
it can be bundled, right? Can't we bundle some of this debt and
Yeah.
save money?
Yeah, we would look at all that before we did anything.
I can almost hear you thinking, Mike.
no, I know. I just want to make, I think it's important that people know how their tax dollars are spent. And, our board has spent a considerable amount of time in the last 3 years discussing PFAS.
I'm trying to get ahead of it.
It is a
And
problem that isn't going away.
And I think, this is an excellent step
Yeah.
to address this problem. I have no issues with being proactive about it and the plan. I'm a little concerned about the dollars. We're at a razor-thin budget here.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure we're doing this right. I know the idea of going fast makes a lot of sense, but the state and the federal government aren't going so fast, and there's downsides to going fast sometimes with.
Like I said, right, if we voted yes now and come before the annual town meeting, we can meet the morning of the town meeting and change our vote recommendation if we get additional data, which implies that, it's never going to happen or is going to happen in 3 years' time or whatever, right? So I think we have time and I will take that on. I will reach out and I will provide information, updated information as to what the regulators are doing.
I'd even make the argument, though, that if you find out that they're not going to lower the standard for 3 years, let's just say that what you just said becomes true, is that still a good reason for us to hold off on filtering what we know, what the proof shows is, a terribly dangerous chemical to have in our water, just because other communities or the government or the state is saying that, 20 parts per trillion or more is okay for now? I don't know. I think
I don't know either. I can tell you that I had that same thought today about why they set these, and I don't want to pretend that that I would know that answer, because when they set these, purportedly they're doing it based on science and people that are experts that are coming before them and saying at this level it's safe. If this, but above that it's not. And they're supposed, we trust that our government's doing that kind of work, and that's why they have these open comment times. That's why they have, because they have all kinds of, they let the companies have their say, they let the other scientists have their say. So we don't know.
No, I
But,
know.
it's in 99% of Americans, or 95 or something like that, in some small part. So, I think we trust that our government sets these standards based upon the available science and medical information.
Yeah.
So,
Keep in mind, too, that even if we remove it from the water, it doesn't eliminate our exposure.
No,
There's only percentage comes through our groundwater or our tap water, so we're helping a little bit, but we're not.
but at least we're removing one source.
We're
This is
controlling
what
what we can
we
control.
have control over, right? We don't have control over what people choose to do. In terms of their, clothing or chemicals that they use in their homes or.
If they
other
want,
things.
yeah, if they want to
But we
continue.
do have control over whether we can help provide clean water.
Yeah,
right.
that's our job.
That's our job.
Yeah, and if people want to keep on eating microwave popcorn, well,
No
Yeah.
thanks.
No, I don't, no. Yeah, I was not for that.
Yeah, right. So,
I'm ready to,
Yeah, should we?
I'm ready to ask for a vote.
Is
I
there
would,
somebody's hand, is that a hand up, though, on Alicia Babcock?
I believe that's just the mouse.
Oh,
Does anybody else from the public have any questions or comments? Before I,
okay.
okay. Of course. Yep.
sure.
Just to that last point about what you have control over, but I don't know, and I apologize, I don't know all about this, but do you, now that you know microwave popcorn, which, you know, I took all that stuff out of my life 20 years ago, but like, can the town post just, here are the most common where the PFAS, and have you done that? I don't know.
Yes. If it's, Mark, there was a forum.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on our website. We had a forum a couple of weeks ago, and we had a great presentation. That's all been uploaded on the site, on the website. And so I suggest, please go ahead and access the DPW website to get the latest information on PFAS and where it is and what can you do as a citizen to mitigate, at least minimize your exposure to the PFAS.
And is the stuff that we do, like, you know, I don't use any laundry detergent that has stuff in it, but like, is like actual stuff that affects the water that, you know, I don't know, I guess a better way to get it out there so people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all there. It's really good.
It's all
There's
there, but, all right.
lots of resources, lots of links associated with that
There's-
presentation.
And there's a nonprofit, Duxbury Safe Water,
Yeah.
that has some links. I also found some information on, I think it was Silent Spring.
Yeah, that,
This one.
That site had what you can take out of your body. It was like and to have like kind of a clean diet. So
I
to speak.
actually recommended the school to add that book by Rachel Carson to the list.
Okay.
For a books to read, because she actually spent a lot of time in Duxbury.
Yeah.
Rachel Carson, so.
And if you eliminate the microwave popcorn from your, menu, then you won't need the bad
I mean,
dental floss as
There we
much,
go.
you
That's
know?
right, yeah.
Also have
It's
to,
all linked.
but it's also good for anxiety and sleep.
That's
to
right.
pound a bag of popcorn. So
So there's,
there's a lot of trade-offs there.
like in life, there's choices you have to make,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Are you ready for 14?
Yes, I would, and I just only ask, I'm happy to take I think we should take a vote, in my opinion. But especially with respect to the 15, I'd like to hear more as we get closer to town meeting about this funding source, how this is going to be paid for, how, the borrowing and the timing on that. Because if there's something different than the information we're getting on the fly right now, I want to know that.
I
The
basically,
information you're getting is from Mary McKinnon. She's texting me.
She's texting you.
Yeah.
Okay.
As she just texted me, it needs to be a general fund project, not water enterprise. The cost has to be borne by everyone, even those with wells. And the larger scope would be an override, debt exclusion, or a combo of the
Yep.
both. So.
Larger scope, but we're not,
Larger scope. I mean, this is a
That's-
$20 to $30 million
we're
project
going to have to figure
over
that
time.
out
yeah.
anyway.
So this is a
There's-
big
there's
nut.
a
This is
lot
the
more
first
time
foray into it.
and that's the work that Ryan will be doing, figuring out the funding sources and how we can pay for this.
And that 1 million you said from the general fund, we have the capacity for that in our,
It's borrowing.
it's borrowing.
It's $1 million borrowing. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll take a vote.
I know, I hate to borrow money too,
I
but
know.
I don't know what could be more important to borrow money for. I move that the Select Board recommend to town meeting the approval of Article 14.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Fine.
Are you ready for 15?
I am, thank you, madam.
I move that the Select Board recommend to town meeting approval of Article 15.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Fine.
All right, Articles 20 and 21, we have some local historic district proposed amendments.
Yep, you have
And-
Pam Smith here to help you
Pam is
do
here.
that one.
Hi, Pam.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ryan,
Thanks, Mark.
and thank you,
Thank you.
Fernando. Excellent work.
All right, no, teamwork. Thanks, Ryan.
No, I know, this is a lot of, that was extra credit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
All right.
Are we ready?
Oh, yes.
We're ready.
This is the most, it's
Article
been a
20.
long time coming, Pam, right?
Yes, it has.
Articles 20 and 21.
Article 20, proposed amendment to the Historic District Bylaw, Chapter 12 of the General Bylaws by adding a new section 12.6.3. this all came about because the Tar Kiln building, which is in a local historic district, was identified as needing some minor repairs. And so they reached out to our commission and said, do we have to come before you and meet to get these repairs done? And that's what instigated this whole process. And so I think it was probably last August. Michael and Fernando and I sat down with the new building facilities director, discussed Tar Kiln, and then came up with a better overall partnership with the town and the local historic district commission. And that we were saying, here's an opportunity for leadership, for the town to offer town properties like the Wright Building, the Bluefish River Fire Station, which were proposed a year ago. Here's that opportunity with the understanding that the Duxbury Local Historic Commission, in partnership with the town, has an understanding that as long as you are replacing the detail with a like product and you photograph it for us, you don't have to come before the commission. So in other words, if you photograph it on Friday and send it to us, on Monday we could say, well done, go ahead and complete this project. It's not going to cost any more money. It's the same amount of material, and we're actually saving you time. And that's what this is about.
Question. Hey, this is only for municipal property?
This article is.
So but private property owners don't have this benefit, right?
They don't.
And why should we benefit the town in a way that local property owners are not benefited?
Because we're asking the town for their leadership. This commission was a study group in 2006. I was on that study group, and I've been there ever since. And the study group was asked by then selectmen, is Duxbury ready to try again for a local historic district? Because in 1989, High Street was proposed, and residents along High Street were told it was going to be a local historic district, and they came to town meeting and raised a storm, and it didn't pass. So now fast forward, 2006, we came back and we said to the selectmen, yep, we think we ought to go forward with this, with the caveat that these are all volunteered properties. We're not going to make anybody do it. We are going to start out asking people to volunteer, like Fernando, like Michael. And so now we're asking last year for the town to step up and take that leadership role. And if with that leadership role, we're hoping more residents will jump in and expand existing districts.
Okay, I get that, but I guess my concern is, and this is with respect to you guys too, this is going to let the town, I appreciate the town putting property into the district, but why should you have additional restrictions that the town doesn't have?
I'll tell you
I
what.
think,
Yeah,
Want me to answer that?
let Mike answer it first.
Yeah, and I think this came about, this is also in response to why the town properties didn't get passed, they got, I believe, IP'd last year.
IP'd, yeah.
Because there was a concern about the costs associated with having town employees attending night meetings about, with this committee about minor repairs. And this was a compromise to that, to not have Christina or whoever having to come in to the local historic district on the evenings when they're not, and the town having to put forward that cost. But while also allowing the local, providing some confidence to the local historic district that these minor repairs are in fitting with the local historic district. So it's a balance there to save taxpayers money, but also to make sure that the properties are in compliance with the local historic district.
But I think it's also important to note is that by placing your home in a local historic district, you can do whatever you want inside the home. You can paint it pink, you can paint it black, you can take the floor, you can totally modernize and just remove all the historic features inside that home, as long as the streetscape stays the same. So you can paint it any color you want. You're not limited by paint, as long as the streetscape, as long as, so my house is an old cape, so as long as it looks like a cape. My wife painted the shutters there a rather unusual color. I like the color. And it's not your traditional cape color, but we can do that. We don't need permission. It's about keeping the streetscape. I think the concern was with the bylaws as currently written, or previously as currently written, the concern was that this was going to put onus on the town, which is going what Mike was saying, that the town would go through additional hoops, would limit what the town could do to that building, right? I think there's a lot of, again, conversation, right? What happens if you want to change it into 10 offices or 20 offices? All that stuff is, I think that this provides the clarity here. As long as it's the streetscape, you basically use the same materials, replace it, looks exactly the same, send a picture that you proved it, then it just simplifies and is aligned with the intent of my house being a local historic district and the town being, town property being in the local historic district. It's made it clarified that there's not additional expense, taxpayers' money for putting a building in. You can still do what you need to do. If you want to replace the with plastic wood, composite wood to make it last longer, and that's your plan, you can do it as long as it looks from the streetscape the same.
That was actually my question,
Yeah.
was, a lot of people are using plastic wood
Yeah.
now because it doesn't rot. And,
Yeah.
for siding, some of the hardy
right.
plank and some of the, and it does look, you really can't tell. So are those, those things are still allowed? So
Yeah.
that was my first question.
Yeah.
And then my second question was that you said that, all that would be required would be a picture, like a picture on Friday, and then they could move forward on Monday. But wouldn't your group have to meet at a public meeting? I mean, there's got to be a time put in there for you to meet and render.
So maybe I was exaggerating that, because we meet on Tuesday.
All right, so there may, that, yeah.
Maybe a week or something, you guys. But if it's important, I'm sure you could call a special meeting and move it. I think what we're trying to do is assure the residents that this is not going to end up, by putting a town piece of property, end up costing more for the town to operate, and therefore more in property taxes. I think that's the intent. It's not to apply more restrictions to what the town could do.
And this was run by legal, and it was also run by Mr. Skelly at the.
Mr. Skelly's no longer there,
But we at least,
but we asked
we
him
emailed him.
with his past experience, and he wasn't aware of any other community that's ever done this before.
Right.
And I think because of that response is when we took it to town council.
Yeah.
So that always frightens me, but let me give you my perspective. So with respect to I wrote this, so I'm pretty fluent with it. The private residences are all totally voluntary. In this case, the towns wouldn't be. Also, town properties receive far more scrutiny than any private residence because everything is attributed to taxpayer dollars.
Yep.
So if we want to change anything on a town building, it has to first go through fiscal advisory, finance committee, the board, and then town meeting. So we can't do anything to a town building without that review. So our level of review is 4 times higher than anything that a private residence would go through. And the final issue is the capacity issue. We don't have the staff to shepherd applications like this through that could take up to a year. And so this was sort of an easy fix. In this case, as you read the article, For the repairs or replacement of existing features on the exterior of a town-owned property within a district, composite materials may be used to repair the facade of the building, and trim work shall match the existing trim. And here's the process. The town will notify the historic district within 2 weeks of the expected start date.
Yeah.
The town will photograph the existing elements to be repaired or replaced, and those images will be provided to the commission. The town will match the detail being repaired or replaced, and repairs may commence without a meeting of the commission or the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness.
Yeah.
So any town project, like I said, is going to have far more review, and as a result, it seemed reasonable to expedite the process.
So you don't see this as any detriment to the town or to getting projects done or anything? It just
Nope.
is a partnership?
It's just a thing.
Yeah.
We take pictures and let them know. That's what they wanted to know. They want to know when something's going to happen, and they will. It's really easy.
So if this is good enough for the town, why isn't it good enough for the residents who are in the districts?
That's a question for them.
Well,
I wrote it from the town standpoint.
but I think that Rainey and Fernando have also mentioned it, just the taxpayer dollars that goes into the process they'd have to go through to do that.
I agree, and I think the town should lead by example. But I think that includes going through the process that we set up to make private property owners go through. And you do a great job, and you in the committee do a great job making sure that the thing that's going to be proposed is appropriate for the period or whatever we're trying to preserve. My only point, it's not that the town shouldn't be in it. The town should be in it. We should play by the same rules that we're enforcing on other people. And I understand there's a cost that goes with that.
But one's voluntary, one isn't.
What do you mean it isn't voluntary?
All they have to do is
So-
propose an article to drop a town property in the district, and there it is. It's up to the voters.
Well,
Whereas,
right, but town
whereas
meeting would
Fernando
vote on that.
chose- and Mike chose to do it voluntarily.
Yeah.
They weren't told they had to do
Yeah,
it.
I can't justify saying to somebody else who wants to put their property in the district, yeah, do it, but you're not going to be subject to the same rules as the town.
Again, it's voluntary.
No, I get it, but I think there's an inherent
big-
But
unfairness there.
To Rainey's point, if I wanted to change if I wanted to put another L on my house, I only would have to go before that committee. But if town hall wanted to put another L on, it would have to pass the town meeting, it would have to go before the finance committee, it would have to be
Fiscal.
fiscal board.
It's
And
more stringent, actually.
it's
Far
more
more.
stringent to be, a home, like as a homeowner, I have, and in the local historic district, I don't mind this compromise because I want the local historic districts to expand. And I don't mind that I have to go before this committee if I want to make a substantive change to my home. And I would feel comfortable with the town having this procedure laid out here so that people that aren't part of the local historic district, that the other taxpayers don't have to foot the bill for staff members coming at night and presenting and putting together packages for the local historic district commission. I think that was a big concern of the finance committee last year, was that there would be a cost, a hidden cost to volunteering town properties into local historic districts, and that hidden cost being maybe having to hire additional staff to put together plans for the Tarkiln building, or showing up to 2 or 3 meetings because we have quorum issues or something, anything. Those hidden costs were a concern of the finance committee last year, which was why it was IP'd last year.
Yeah.
So I hear you, that, I don't have to do that, and Fernando doesn't have to do that, or doesn't get that benefit of doing this procedure. But there's a reason for it, and I think it's a good faith reason to the other taxpayers that are essentially volunteering if Article 21 passes, volunteering town-owned buildings into local historic districts.
But just let's clarify, you issued a key word, substantive change.
Right. It's a big,
So
it would have
it's
to
a
be like
big-
another L or something.
Is it, yeah, so the homeowner would go through a process to go through the local historic district. The town would have to go through, the local historic district would have to go for the fiscal advisory. So basically, it's for substantive change that we're talking about here. This is a concern that I think clarification that change that is not substantive is basically follows the same procedure as a homeowner. Homeowner replaces like for like, or as long as it doesn't change the street scope, doesn't have to do anything. And the concern was that the town, unless we made that clarification, there was a perception that they have to go through a whole bunch of stuff. This is, we're basically, I'd say the other way around, actually, we're aligned in terms of replacement, right? It's just very clear what it says. This is minimal, no change to the streetscape, no change to the outward appearance. And just like I can use for my siding, I can use composite material. I don't have to use the wood, right? And so the same
Right,
thing goes for
but-
the town, yeah.
But you couldn't just take a picture of it, send it in and do it.
I wouldn't do it anyway.
Right, because he didn't volunteer to.
I'm not going
There's
to do
the
it.
difference.
Okay.
It's
I disagree. I disagree.
Okay, all right,
I hear all the arguments. I respectfully disagree.
all right. Well,
I think it's what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't pay taxes on our properties.
You're welcome.
So are you. I got 78 of them. But I'm not paying taxes on them. Municipal exemption.
Okay, are you guys ready for a vote? Is there anybody who wants to speak to this? Do you ask anybody?
Yeah, just to clarify, it has nothing to do with the commission. This is, in my view, it's a fairness thing. Okay.
I would take a motion on 20.
I will make a motion that the Select Board recommend to town meeting the approval of Article 20, which is the proposed amendment to Historic District bylaw.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
One nay.
4 to 1, 0. Yeah, no, 4 to 1.
410, yep. And now for 21.
Article 21, propose new Alden Local Historic District in addition to the Windsor Local Historic District. This was before town meeting last year. And so it's before town meeting in 2024. And so what we're asking is that the Wright Building be the first building admitted to the new district called the Alden District. This is a town-owned building. The second would be the Bluefish River Fire Station. This would be added to an existing district called the Windsor District. Any questions?
It's not called the Washington, it's not the Washington Street?
It's Windsor.
It's Windsor. Oh.
I have a question about the Bluefish Fire Station, and Nancy Bennett had been in and had expressed, apparently she was a big part of the restoration of that. I don't know if you assisted with that, but the fire station sign was down. Has that been put back up on there?
No, it won't be. It's in my office. It's a terrible piece of plywood. It's absolutely deteriorated. You can't read it anymore. It's just trash. It didn't weather well.
Okay.
It wasn't made correctly. It was just a painted plywood sign. And the
It was
use is switched over to the harbor master.
I know, and I think that she understood that the building was being utilized for other, purposes, but it was important to the people who had put a lot of effort in restoring that building to have the sign that said, the firehouse. I'd like to,
You should come over and see it. I'll show it to you.
no, I know, I'll reach out to Ms.
So are you asking
Bennett. If that can,
Of
if that would.
individuals or the town would do a new sign?
Well, as long as it's reflective of the use.
No.
And it's not
It
a fire
could
station.
Why would it be reflective of the use? It's
emergency
a
services to know what's
historic
going on.
fire station that's being used by the harbor master, I think, so,
The signs usually indicate the activity going on the premises, and in this case, it's the harbor master.
well, the harbor stores stuff in there,
Uh-huh.
right.
Yeah.
But it's a historic building that was once a firehouse. It seems to be more appropriate, if we're putting this in a historic district, to recognize the history of the building, not what it's being used for. My opinion.
So, is it possible that this discussion could be at a later date.
Yes,
and not a
I'm happy to do
reflection
that,
on
and I'm
what
happy
we're
to reach
talking
out to
about
her.
now.
So I think it's,
I'm sensitive to what you're saying.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a nice idea, we can come up with some plexiglass or something to put over it and make it weatherproof.
I think it'd be
I'm
important.
sure-
Not in a historic district.
I don't know
so-
if that'll fly, but
I don't know. I want it to last too. It's
maybe
sitting
we
in-
can do a
it's better than
neon
re-
sign.
Oh, no, if it was out there now, it
I'm
would be
joking.
down.
Yeah, if it's, yeah, it
So
would be, it would
deteriorated.
be in the Bluefish River. So, the only point I wanted to make, I know we spent a lot of time on the Alden District last year with council. Just to be clear to the viewers at home, it's just the building there, correct? It's not the property line. It's just the actual building itself.
Correct, and that is in the pamphlet, the town meeting. There's a map in there with this article.
And so the school kind of abuts that, they don't own the grass or, it's,
Right.
I don't know how that
So
works.
the line for this is almost the parking lot.
Right.
It's kind of like the parking lot around the building.
And this was approved by the Historic Commission with the state as well?
Yes.
Okay. There any, other than us recommending it, is there anything else the local historic district has to do to approve this before town meeting on a timeline-wise?
No.
Okay.
Well, we have a public hearing tomorrow.
Excellent.
Yeah. 6 o'clock, Duxbury Senior Center.
See, I'm teeing up your plugs, I knew it.
We're gonna have a crowd.
All right, I'm ready for a motion.
I move that the Select Board recommend to town meeting the approval of Article 21, the proposed additions to local historic districts of the Wright Building and the Bluefish Fire Station.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the local historic district. I know this is a lot of work.
Well done, folks, well done.
All right, so you have 4 done.
Yep, we're getting there, plugging away.
And now I'm ready for the town manager's report.
Yes, it's a brief one. Cindy, forgive me, you've seen this, I forgot to email to you, but it's the future select board agenda items. I know you saw it last week, but.
Okay, no problem, thank you.
Yep, it's just an update on that, and the only update is actually going to be removed, and that was number 11, which says appointment of planning board members. We were waiting to see what happens with the town election first, and then the board and the planning board would address the vacancies. But it looks like we might not have that problem, so that's
Yeah.
a good
It's
situation.
good news.
I think we will have one appointment, though.
We're gonna have to have one,
Right.
There's only 2 on the ballot, but there are going to be 3 vacancies.
the
Okay.
third didn't make the timing
Right.
to get a third on the ballot.
Could they do a write-in?
Well, they're going to have 6, potentially 6 candidates.
Okay,
So
So
the 6
all
for
right, so I'll
the,
leave it in
I
there.
assume we'll just take the 3rd highest vote getter and appoint that person, but who
we have
knows?
to, we have to
I think
discuss
it-
that.
decide-
I don't know, I'm
discuss.
guessing it's one idea.
That's a
As,
good-
it's one of Amy's favorite things to do,
What?
the open, an open planning board
Yeah,
interview.
Oh, I find them, yeah.
you'd love them.
You,
No, I.
You can't wait. You can't,
I
you're
can,
just
I love it.
jumping at the bit.
I'd much rather be able to, get
I mean,
elected
it's
in. That's a tough process, but.
So it's been all about the warrant and the budget this week.
Yep.
All right. This is kind of the season. I will tell you, though, that it looks like, back to something you had mentioned earlier, Fernando, it looks like we'd probably shoot for
What date?
either the 26th of February or the 4th of March for the Bay management stuff. As long as I get the stuff in on Thursday, then I'll put it in the queue, but those are the 2 dates I'd shoot for. February 26th or March 4th.
February 26th. So that, there's no meeting next week anyway, so that's
Correct.
that's the meeting, the first meeting afterwards.
Yeah.
Yep.
If I get the stuff in time, I'm happy to put it on there, but we'll
Why aren't we
schedule
meeting next week?
President's Day.
We're meeting next week.
Oh, sorry.
2 weeks.
Wow. I'm sitting here looking at a calendar. Yeah, we are meeting next week. It won't be next week, that's for sure.
It won't be next week, okay?
Not at all. No, we've got way too many warrant articles to cover.
I am not able to be here I'll have to zoom in on the 4th if that. 'cause
I'll shoot
I'm-
for the 26th.
No, shoot for
Amy.
the 26th, please.
Good,
so
that would be
Amy-
great, thank
Amy
you.
needs to be here.
Yeah.
And what would that be for?
Day
That's
management.
the.
Bay management and-
Bay
Bay
management.
management.
And shellfish.
And I do think that there'll be I think we should put aside a bit of time for that, because I do
yeah,
think
yeah.
that there's some
Absolutely.
people in the
Yeah.
public
Yeah.
that want to weigh in.
Right now, it'd be the only thing, so that's good, because we'll have everything
Excellent.
else wrapped up by then.
I'll
Yeah,
let,
so that's pretty much it. You've got a busy meeting on the 12th, because anything that's on the one-liners that doesn't have a number, a vote in your column, that's what you're gonna be seeing. Oh, yeah, and where is it? I also brought copies of, well, what I did, of the draft.
Special?
Special, yes. I'll pass them out in a minute. I just gotta find them in my mess. But that's
Do
all
we
I
have a
got.
dollar amount for the matching grant funds, what we're thinking for that article?
I thought it was 200K.
It is.
We always done haven't we done 250?
250, I think that was
It's right
all,
here.
basically based on our budget, that's all we could afford.
That's what we can afford, yep. That's draft. It'll be further finalized.
Yep, that's all we
There's
could
some
afford
votes
as a
taken by the
town.
finance committee and you folks. Actually, it'll become finalized. It will be finalized on the 12th. That's the day I'm gonna ask you to close it and sign it. So there you go. There's my report. Thank you.
All right. Cindy, did you have any questions for Rainey before we move on? I don't want to cut you off.
No, I just, and I talked to Rainey about this before, and Amy just brought it up, the matching funds. If there's any way to revert back to 250,000 from being cut back, that's, I think with so many projects coming forward now, with Snug Harbor and, you know, still beach stuff and on and on and on, I think we're selling ourselves a little short if we don't have enough matching funds to apply for grants.
Right, the grants are such a important, you know, at some point in the future, I think we really, I wasn't gonna get into this tonight, but I think we need to make some policy and prioritizations. I think the board owes it to the residents and the staff as well to let our preferences and prioritizations be made known. Something, you know, as important as coastal resiliency projects moving forward and being able to apply for grants. You know, we've got PFAS issues, we have seawall, we've got coastal resiliency, we're, you know, looking into elevating parts of Snug Harbor. We have so many things that I think, you know, we need to try to articulate what our prioritizations are and how we can strategize. When last summer, John Adams had had a group that he was working with in terms of funding a lot of these big ticket items. Because that's the other part of this. We can prioritize all day long, but if we don't have a plan to come up with the money that is necessary for these projects, then they don't seem to move forward, no matter how much we talk about them. So I think that we have to, you know, approach it from both directions. What are the priorities? And those are always going to be changing. It's not a, you know, it's the things come and go, and, you know, but we need to try to recognize those and try to strategize and come up with a strategic plan as to how to fund those issues. And a big part of that is grants and the grant writing, and whether we're going to, you know, talk about hiring somebody or utilizing a firm and a consultant, which I think would be a great way to go. But, you know, I really think after town meeting, maybe we can try to put some time aside to have a big conversation like that.
I think, building on that, Amy, I think we'll have a new select board 2 weeks after annual town meeting. The town meeting, with all the hard work that's been put in the past few months, I think Rennie can breathe a a sigh of relief, right? Got a bit of space. I think it'd be good for the. I think it'd be good.
I love your optimism.
That's right. Yeah, but I think
We'll
it would
see
be
you in September.
That's right. See you in September. But I think it would be good as a board building on that, and then we've talked about it, is actually what are the priorities of this board? What do we want Rennie to at the end of the day to work on? And we've discussed this as a. I think we need to make it clear. I think we have lots of different priorities, and I think sometimes we overload our town manager with the multitude of priorities. So I think as a board, we need to maybe sit down and look at and come up with clear directions for Rennie as a town manager to execute and progress on our behalf.
I appreciate that. I'll have some suggestions as well.
Sounds good.
And they'll all be part of the whole override group they'll be putting together.
Yeah.
And it won't
Wait a
really
minute,
be a new
wait a
board.
minute, hold on. Sorry, Cindy, I'm having a bit of a heart attack. How this suggestion just turned into an override.
No. It isn't.
If
It's
you're going to
a.
add positions, it's going to be an override.
It's.
But
It's all part of the greater conversation.
I understand, and I'm not avoiding that conversation. I wanted to, when we first started talking about a potential concern about an override last year, I was the first one to say, let's start talking about that. Just because I mentioned a grant writer does not, I feel like every time I, try to take a step in that direction, we go right to the override discussion. And again, that's a discussion that we need to have, but I don't think the grant writer, because I do believe that can be a subcontracted position, needs to equal override. But again, a discussion that let's.
We need
get
to do
into
it, right? Because remember this last budget, basically we hit the wall,
Yep.
right? And we managed.
That's why your grant money is down to 200 instead of 250. There's no additional 50,000.
Right, so we hit the wall, and so the next step is, and Rennie is going to take it on, is basically put together a committee, a cross-department, cross-board, basic fiscal advisory, finance committee, school committee, everybody's got to be there to talk about an override or not to override.
Well,
That's the.
what it boils down to is what are our needs and what's sustainable.
Exactly.
That's what it comes down
We're going to have a really good conversation, right? At the end of the day, as we talked about, just let me finish, Amy. The minimum that we need to do as a town, right, is basically provide public safety, schools, what else? And water, right? Everything else is.
Well, there's a whole host of services. I mean.
Well, I know we provide that, but what are the minimum things that the town needs to provide?
Well, there's
Yeah,
the
But those are
minimum.
minimum things.
That's right, there's minimum things, right?
But there's
then-
different views of what those
Well,
minimums
exactly,
are.
and then that's the conversation we need to
I
get
mean,
into.
like,
That's exactly the conversation we need to get into.
Right.
I think Rainey phrased it well
Yes.
in that it's not a discussion necessarily about an override, it's a discussion regarding priorities.
Priorities.
And
Right.
from there, it may be a discussion about an override.
Yeah. But
One-
then we can have an informed discussion.
Yeah, one other thought, doesn't cost any money, that I think we started off doing really well after last town meeting, is we met with the planning board. We don't have a planner right now. A lot of these ideas would be planner roles and responsibilities. But I thought we had some productive conversations with the planning board about priorities and things that we were interested in, and we were hoping to do that on more of a frequent basis. I think that would be a good thing to do in the next year, particularly if we have to meet with them at some point to do an open interview for that remaining spot on the planning board. I don't want to tie up planning board members for extra meetings, but if they're going to be here anyway,
Yeah, double it up.
we could double it up and have a conversation about how we want to divvy up our responsibilities.
Yeah, we can get that thing off of the long-range agenda, number 7.
No, I think that's a good idea, but I have a feeling that their priorities, their tasks haven't changed much from the last conversation that we had with them. Again, it all comes down to having a plan to fund
Yeah.
the
No, you're right.
the projects and again, I know this stuff costs money and it's hard and I don't want the override is a conversation that has to be had, and let's hope that we can find ways that we can avoid that, because I know I'm going to try.
You have a hand up there, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes. Unless does anybody else from the board want to chime in before I turn over to the question that we have from the audience? Cindy, are you all set for now?
Yep, no.
Okay. Ms. Babcock, I see your hands up. You're muted. Do you want to chime in?
Hi,
If you could
everybody.
give your
Thank you.
name and street address.
Yes, Alicia Babcock, 9 Ocean Road South.
Thank you.
I just wanted to support everything that Amy said. I think that she made a lot of very good points about the necessity of the grant money and the reasons why. And I do think it is the obligation of the town to lower the costs for the general public as much as possible. And there's a lot of money out there for various things. And you know I advocate for the seawall, of course, all the time, but there are a lot of other coastal projects that need to be done in town as well, and these things are very costly. And I think that putting grant money aside should be one of the top priorities. And I think we should be putting away really double that as much as possible. I was kind of, really disappointed to hear that it had been lowered to 200. I was really hoping that the town would kind of double down on that and put away $500,000. Putting away only 250 allows us to only request $1 million. And as you know, that doesn't really stretch all that far. So, I guess I'm putting a request in from the public to increase that amount if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And it'll be on the agenda on 2/12, next week. So that article will be on the agenda.
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right.
It'd be good to have Mary McKinnon here.
Oh, she will be.
Yeah, there's a whole host of things on the 12th.
Yeah, yeah. We need to understand the financial position the town is in. All right? Yep.
That was all I had.
All right. I will move on to the event permit requests. We have one of them. It's for the Duxbury Youth Baseball Opening Day. And I don't know if Rainey wanted to say anything more about that.
You know what it's all about. You go too.
I do. It's a wonderful event for our baseball and softball teams. Been attending it the last couple of years,
Gary does a
having
great
children in the
job.
program. And I will say this, yes, Gary is excellent and does a really nice job with the baseball program in particular, and with that ceremony. And the Legion comes out and does a really nice, their color guard. It's really nice tradition that the town has, and hope many attend it. It's Saturday, April 6th, and it'll be that morning. I don't know the exact time, but
8 to 12. Somebody's about to say
yeah, I
the
know,
motion.
but there's probably mid-morning is when the festivities occur, but I know the permit's for 8 to 12.
I move that Mr. Gary Williamson, as the president of the Duxbury Youth Baseball, is granted permission to hold Duxbury Youth Baseball's opening day event on Saturday, April 6, 2024, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. approximately at the Train Field location at Alden Street, contingent upon the conditions of the permit.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I just want to recognize that Gary Williamson is also the newest member of the Recreation Activities Committee. So we thank him for his ongoing volunteerism to the town.
All right, we have
I have several minor changes, and they are super minor, so if we could approve these as amended, and then I'll give you the changes.
Is it for the open session or we only have the open session?
It's for these.
I know it
minutes.
says on them, I'm just reading off the thing here. So we only have the open session. Could I have a motion, or do you want to
I
discuss some of
move
the
to,
changes?
I move to approve the 12/4/23 Select Board open session minutes as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Are we going to hear
Yes.
what those changes
Yeah,
are?
can
before
we
vote?
discuss, actually, before we vote, what are the changes?
I wrote them on the thing. We can,
Are they typographical?
yeah, no, it was,
Here.
hold on, I wrote them on my thing now. All right, we can put it off till next week. So on page 4 of 10, third line from the bottom, Ms. McNabb was concerned with how this will affect the surrounding area. If we could just say Ms. McNabb was concerned with how the increasing elevations will affect the surrounding area. This was in terms of the Snug Harbor.
Yeah.
So it just makes it clearer what I was
The
saying.
identifier, yep.
And then on page 6 of 10, under the discussion regarding the order of layout for Dogwood Drive, under the discussion, about 10 lines down, Ms. McNabb stated that it was clearly not intended, not designed, and not built to the specifications that would be, that would allow it to be a public way, and for the town to accept the costs and maintenance of such would be detrimental. We kind of left it hanging without a ending on that sentence.
So you're adding the phrase "would be detrimental" after such?
Yep, would be
Okay.
And the past
detrimental.
tense at
Yep.
the beginning as opposed to is, it would be
Yeah,
was.
it was, and then would be detrimental at the end of the sentence, and that's it.
Okay. I'll take the vote again.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
thank you. Yep.
Announcements.
The 2024 beach and transfer stickers. New 2024 beach and transfer stickers effective April 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025 will be available to purchase on Tuesday, February 20th. Stickers will be purchased online by visiting www.town.duxbury.ma.us and clicking the link to purchase under the Services tab on the homepage, by calling City Hall Systems at 508-381-5455, or by mailing in or dropping off an application and supporting documents to Stickers Department, Duxbury Town Hall, 878 Tremont Street, Duxbury, Massachusetts 02332. Applications are available on the town website and inside the lobby of Town Hall for your convenience. If you are dropping off an application, please drop off in the black secure lockbox behind the Town Hall with a self-addressed stamped envelope. Additional information regarding sales and current services can be located on the homepage of the town's website, www.town.duxbury.ma.us. The next Select Board's meeting will be on Monday, February 12th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question about the beach stickers? So
Yeah.
it used to be that if you bought this was years ago, and I think I ask this every year, but I'm not sure that we get discounts anymore. There used to be, if you bought your sticker before March,
May 1st,
before May 1st, you got
for the early bird.
a discount. Is that still
I have to
in?
look, I'm not sure.
I don't think we're doing that anymore, but I always think that's a good idea.
Well, hold on a sec. We lose revenue.
I know, but it's not, it's only a slight discount. I
Well,
think
we-
it pushes
we did
They
people.
did that discount for years.
Yeah,
right?
and it pushes people to get it. It's like, there
Do
was
you
like,
think it increases take-up, yeah?
yeah,
Did.
Okay.
Yeah.
it
Oh,
did.
cool,
see?
all right, then, well, it increases take-up, more
Well,
revenue,
look at
right?
that.
I
You
don't know
know,
the current
yeah.
status.
So you spend,
We're always full of optimism.
Everybody likes
in
a little
April.
bit of a bargain. So if you feel like you're getting, 10 or 15 or 20 bucks off by doing it before a date, it gives you
Alright.
the incentive.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we still offer it, I'll find out.
Thank you.
I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Feel better, Cindy?
Yes.